If you've been wondering how to go about starting implementing systems and processes in your business, this video is for you because we're going to actually have a look at how to identify what business systems you need to have inside your business, how to go about connecting all the dots, and where to start. So stick around, this video is hopefully gonna make you just a little bit less crazy. Let's start at a base level where we just have a quick recap so that we all are on the same wavelength in terms of what our system actually is. Your business, after all, is a collection of systems, and what I want you to start doing is beginning to see your business in that manner. Once you sort of get into that Neo mode where you see the matrix and your business as a system, then your life is going to get hopefully a lot easier, because at the end of the day what you're trying to do inside your business is systematize everything so that it keeps on being consistent and repeatable and optimized and automated as much as possible. Otherwise you are going to drive yourself absolutely crazy, and maybe everyone else around you if they've even stuck around long enough. So we don't want that, and what we want is for you to really start getting the ideas behind why you got into business in the first place, which is to get that financial freedom and time freedom. And a system is really a collection of all of these processes and technologies and people. When we look at processes are a set of steps, and then underneath that you've got your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, which is detailed explanation on how to go about doing your certain processes in your workflow. And then when you combine those with your technologies like an email marketing platform, Zoom calls, project management system, putting them all together, that then becomes your system. So with that understood, what I want to start doing is breaking down how you go about identifying systems in your business. And the easiest thing to do is start within the functions of your business. Now I've got a video up here which talks about what functions are in every single business, and you might be a single person or 1,000 or 10,000 people inside your business. Most businesses have exactly the same functions, the odd tweak here or there because obviously certain businesses are going to operate in slightly different ways, but you will have essentially 3 functions. Main pillars. You've got your pillar, which is your CEO pillar, which is your strategic management system, because as the CEO of your business you're looking at everything strategically inside the business. Then you've got your product pillar, your customer pillar, as well as your business operations or business pillar, and within each of those you've got different functions that your business should do. Within the customer pillar, for example, we've got our marketing, which is to attract potential people to convert them into sales, which is then your sales function, as well as your after sales, which is onboarding them and making sure that they're happy. And within those you've really got 3 main systems, which is your marketing system, your sales system, and your after sales system. If you look at your product side of things, you've got basically your research and development, where you're actually developing your products or services, and then you've got after that the actual production side of your products and services, where you're producing them. Then that could be either a service or a product, it doesn't matter, and then after that you've got your fulfillment, where you're either delivering it or you are giving your service to delivering it to somebody else. You're essentially fulfilling the order that you've promised your client or customer when they paid you. So within there we've really got 3 main systems as well, where we've got the research and development, or your R&D systems, you've got your production system, and you've got your fulfillment system. Now having a look at your business operations side of things, this is where it gets a little bit more complex, because your business is a complex machine, let's face it, and within there you're going to have certain functions depending on what your business actually does. However, in most cases you are going to have some of these really essential ones. Let's start first of all with operations, because you're going to have operations inside your business no matter what it is you're doing. In operations, essentially you've got an operations system, and within that system its process, and its system is all about developing systems and processes and making sure that everything is efficient and automated and optimized. After that you've got your admin or management, and even if you're one person you're still managing yourself, so we've got an admin management system, which is different from operations, because that is where you are telling people how to do things and making sure that they're doing them correctly and managing resources and all of that stuff, whereas the operations side of things is actually designing the system as a whole. And that's a real sort of distinction between the two, because a lot of people get those confused. Then we've got our HR, which is your people management system. Again, you are one person, you still have HR, you still need to pay yourself, you still need to actually do the work and manage and make sure you've motivated yourself And if you've got 10,000 people in your company, congratulations, you're doing an amazing job, but also you're still going to have an HR function, i.e. people management system, and within that we are going to have a look at little bits of details as we go through the video, so make sure you stick around till the end as we start breaking these systems down a little bit more. And then obviously you've got your legal system and your finance system, and yes, even if you're one person you still have a legal function within your business, because a lot of people say I don't have a legal units, Tama. Well, you actually have to have contracts, and you have to have terms and conditions for your sales, you have to have trademarks, and you have to register your company legally and make sure that you're abiding with the law. You have a legal function, the same with a finance function. You can outsource a lot of that, but in a lot of cases you still need to actually get paid, and you need to pay people, so you're going to have a finance function, and within those you've got a finance system as well as a legal system as well as other aspects within your business. Now you've got a purchasing function which has a purchasing system, and some people actually even call that a supplier chain system, because depending on the type of business you might have a lot of suppliers that you're purchasing from. Subsystems. By the way, just a quick sort of me interjecting here before I let me again carry on is, if you are finding value out of this video, please hit that like button and also the subscribe button if you can, because it really does make a difference to the channel, and it helps YouTube show it to more people, and it helps us know that we are giving you the right message and the right value. So please, it doesn't cost you anything, it won't take you any time, just click on the like button. Thank you. And back to our regular program. Systems can have subsystems, and some people sometimes just call the subsystems systems, and there's no right or wrong here. It depends on what makes the most sense to you, because sometimes in marketing, for example, you might have different systems within there. So you might have an online booking system for calls, you might have a content management system, for example, where it includes things like SEO and blog writing and stuff like that, and you might have different subsystems within your overall marketing system. And the same goes for sales and after sales. For example, after sales you're going to have an onboarding system potentially, but also you're going to have a feedback system, you're going to have a retention system where you're making sure you're keeping people and upselling to them and forwarding them back to your marketing and sales people. So being able to understand your business as this collection of systems is really important, because that's how you're going to start saying, okay, so what processes are within these systems, what kind of procedures and SOPs do we need to develop within these systems, and then that sort of allows you to be able to really start making sure that you're bottling and packaging every little bit of your business in a way where it can be either streamlined, simplified, automated, delegated, which will hopefully drive us a little less insane. And that's the idea about what we're trying to do, because not only do we want to make sure that we're driving ourselves less crazy and be able to have that time and financial freedom, we also want to make sure that we're repeating consistently good results. Otherwise it becomes ad hoc and we're not connecting the dots, and we're not understanding what's actually having a positive impact on the system or the business, or a negative impact, and being able to make sure that we're removing and changing the stuff that's not working and making sure that we keep on repeating the stuff that is working. With all that said, you're going to say, great, Tama, okay, so how do I go about actually starting and finding out what do I need first? And what I usually suggest for people to do is start by looking at particular journeys inside the business of how people interact with that. So for example, you can have a customer journey or somebody who is in your team journey. So let's start looking at a small example of a customer journey right now. Okay, so within a customer journey or a client journey, depends on whether you call them a customer or client, you're going to start mapping out the exact process of what happens. So first of all, you're going to need to attract these people and turn them into potential leads, and then after that they are going to then get onto a sales call, for example, or go to your website. So within each of these you're basically saying, within my marketing system I have a potential subsystem, or a workflow of content management to get them onto the website. Ads, for example, that might be another workflow or subsystem or system. Then we go into the sales, we get a sales call, which we need an online booking system, and then after that, for example, they move on to actually payment, so then we need to have actually a finance part of the system, which is the invoicing and payment subsystem, and I'm using system and subsystem here interchangeably so that you can see that they can be used interchangeably, just remain consistent, right? So then you've got an invoice and payment system where you're actually collecting payment, and then after that you map out, and then you say, right, then we need to have onboarding, so that means we need to have an onboarding system. Within there we've got a workflow who's going to do that, what kind of SOPs do we need to have within that process, and then you keep on following that journey, alright. So then once we've onboarded them we need to start actually producing them the product, or actually just fulfilling the order if we've already produced it before. So then we've got potentially production then fulfillment. But before that, even before they pay, let's rewind a little bit, because actually you might have a contract that you get them to sign, and that's your legal system, so that when they're paying they're actually signing a contract at the same time where you're basically saying this is what we're going to provide you and you're going to pay us X for that. So you begin to see now how these things, that journey flows all the way through until you have a retention system, a feedback system from your after sales. So what I want you to start doing is, if you are beginning to really struggle with where do I start with my systems, just map out journey for somebody who interacts or has a relationship within your business ecosystem. But then you want to also consider other people, because you will then identify a whole different sets of other systems within exactly the same system. So for example, let's have a look at a potential team member, or a staff or employee or even contractor within your business. So let's actually then map out this team journey, and let's assume it's an employee who's applying for a job and will actually get a job. Well, first of all, you're going to have a job description and an ad which goes out, and that's usually done by your HR, and then from there you are going to have them apply, and then you interview them. If you're going to offer them a job, you're going to say, right, here's a contract. So then we've got the legal system again, but this time the legal system and the contracts you're giving are different, because you are saying, I want to have a non-disclosure agreement. I want you not to compete with people. I want you to be able to work these potential hours, and this is going to be a different set of contracts to what you have with your clients. And then when you go to your finance system, it's different again, because you're not collecting payment, you're actually now paying, and you've got a payroll system. So you begin to see that exactly the same kind of functions that you have will sometimes have different systems and different workflows depending on the actual journey of the person. And then once they get on board, that might then be by admin or management, then they go within the team, and then maybe you even collect feedback from clients later on, and you've got a whole different journey that you go through there. Now I'm not going to go through it in great detail here, but I think you get the idea. So what I would like you to do is, if you are struggling to start with building systems, just say, right, what are the different people that interact with my business? What does their journey look like? And let me map that out. And then once you've mapped that out, you can then identify the different systems that you have and the different workflows that you will need to have within those particular systems or subsystems, and then just pick one. Just start with one. Don't try and do everything at the same time, because if you try and do everything at the same time, nothing's going to get done, or it's just going to be an absolute nightmare. Just from an operations perspective, it's going to be a logistical nightmare as well. Just pick one of the systems, pick one of the most important workflows that you have. An easy one sometimes is in onboarding. When you're onboarding clients, and you say, right, let me look at the onboarding of a client, let's see what kind of systems we have, what kind of technologies, what people are involved, what workflow, what steps, and how do we go about greeting them, and meeting them, and saying hello, and what do we need to do, and can we develop an SOP based on telling people who do the onboarding actually how to go about doing the actual workflow, and that's it, and just start with one. And then as you start with one, make sure then you test it, and then keep on optimizing it and improving it. Once you've got that right, then move on to the next one. If you're gonna say to me, okay Tama, but then how do I go about building these systems? This is the video for you to watch. If you're getting a lot of value, by the way, from this video, please make sure that you've hit that like button, because it really does make a difference to the channel, and also hit subscribe, because we are in the process of filming the video where it goes through how to go about building and documenting systems, and it will be right here once it's ready. See you next time.